Hey, it's William Armelini from Flowers and Scents with your industry buzz. Today we're going to interview Rene Van Rems. Rene is a designer extraordinaire. He's an author. He's written books about all sorts of things like hand-tied bouquets. He was trained in Europe and he was studied in the U.S. and he has been published here, there, and everywhere. So I think we should talk to Rene Van Rems because he's an interesting character. So without further ado, Rene Van Rems. Hey, Rene Van Rems, welcome to Flowers and Scents. So good to see you here.
Pleasure.
You and I have a long history together. I get the chance to practice my goeiemorgens and goeiemiddags when I get with you because
you still do that well, by the way.
Yeah, I fool myself and I fool people. People are like, "Oh, okay, you speak a little Dutch." I said, "Yes, a little Dutch would be the right answer." But yeah, it's all in that pronunciation and that.
Yeah, it's a lot of.
So you look, I have to point out the fact that I knew you with hair on your head all these years, and suddenly I saw Rene without hair in his head, and I'm like, damn, that's the same guy. All those years, I thought it was a very good product. So I applaud your toupee maker, I guess. But
yeah, well, they call them hair systems now, but yeah,
hair systems. Well, and we like you like this, by the way. It's a bit more natural.
Thank you.
I wear a hat not because I'm bald, but there's not much up there. My wife convinced me after many years that I go to conventions, everybody say, "Where's your ponytail? Where's your long hair?"
Yeah. So you and I have that same situation.
And I'm like, well, my wife looked at me and she said, don't you think it's time?
And by the way, when you took your hat off, you as a compliment to you, you look like your dad.
I do look like my dad, and I sound like my dad, and it scares me sometimes. I go back and look at these things sometimes, and I'm like, damn, it's my father all over again.
Yeah.
But it's a good thing. So I'm happy to be associated with him.
That's
so
right.
Rene, how the hell did you get in the flower business? I know you were Dutch, and I know you were raised in Holland and Amsterdam, I guess, and
Yes.
and you ended up here. So we have bumped into each other at many conventions and pretty much conventions and here around the world. So anyway, how'd you get here?
Well, the short story is that when I when I was at the Academy of Art in Amsterdam after my horticultural studies, because I'm a horticulturist by schooling.
Okay.
I worked there and I met an American couple from Encinitas, California. They were in Amsterdam to see the Aalsmeer flower market. And we chatted and they said, "Oh, we'd love to meet you." So I think I was 18, 19. And they then spent the whole day with them, took them to the Aalsmeer of the old world and took them to the auction. And then they invited me to come here. So Ohio State University still has a program for international agricultural exchange students.
Yeah.
And I was one of them. And so I stayed with them. They taught me the American way back then. And then I fell in love with both California, nature, and a young lady, and I stayed.
Were they florists?
No, they had a huge greenhouse, and they took me in. They had no children, and they took me in, and I was their climate control person in the greenhouse. They grew Cymbidium orchids, which there are very few left in California, but they grew Cymbidium orchids for cut and plants, and then a lot of greens, because in those days, the 70s, we had kind of like what we're experiencing now, Willie, is like all these like plants are from everywhere.
Yeah.
So that's how I got here, and then I ended up staying.
Yeah, you're like, well, there's nothing not to like about San Diego area. Both of my daughters live out in.
That's right.
They did live in San Diego. They couldn't afford it anymore, so now they're in San Marcos and Temecula.
Oh, but yep.
Still nice areas, and the beauty of Florida is we have water. You guys are struggling for water. That's an issue.
We are having a very, very serious situation, very serious, and I think most people are not seeing it. And the sad thing about our industry is that the few flower growers that are left, unless you have your own water, you can't do it with city water. I mean, you are so blocked in. But anyway, yeah, it's a little challenging. But we have we have weather for different crops than you guys have. So that's kind of the
Yeah.
change out, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
And you're also an author. You have written several books, I think. Yeah.
I have. They're mostly education coffee table books
Right.
on the art of floral design. But I did them because I was doing so many presentations for garden clubs and associations and wholesalers, et cetera, that people said, oh, you know, because I was always teaching. I
Right.
was teaching what I was taught in Holland, right?
Sure.
And European design, which when I got here, European flowers were just being reintroduced. And
Yeah.
so I kind of got here, quote unquote, at the right time. And as you know, the area that I'm at was lots of flower growers. And
Sure.
uh, the last one in Southern California that had a greenhouse, Drem Nectar, very,
Right.
very well
Yeah.
respected company. They just moved to Baja.
Yep.
So they're growing grounds. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's a pretty fascinating world.
When were you there? When did you start your career there in California?
Oh, right away. But you know, I'm one of these I don't know what you call it, accidents, but I was 13 when I ended up working in a flower shop to make some cash.
Okay.
And so I've been in the flower business all my life. And there's several other people, Jay Schwanke, who you've talked to. He is kind of the same kind of guy that, you know,
Sure.
my mom always had flowers in the house and doing things. So that they kind of nurtured it. And then I had a very good mentor who took me under his wing to do all these Dutch trade shows. And so I just have been in it and absorbed from 13, 14 years on. And it just was a natural, you know.
Yeah, sort of born into it like me. Again,
Yes.
I thought I
Yeah.
was in the trucking business, but well, I always believed I was in the flower business, but the reality was there was trucks, you know. So I had to.
Yeah.
But I've always felt I've been part of the. I went to flower conventions. I didn't go to trucking conventions, so it's been such a part of my life for
Yeah.
forever that
Yeah.
yeah, we're lifers in this situation.
Yeah, we're
And
lifers.
your specialty, I think, was doing hand tides, which was a really Dutch
Yeah.
invention. I don't know if it's invention, but a Dutch feature, and
Yes.
not everybody could pull that off. And holding it in one hand, I've watched a lot of people do that now. It's quite an art.
Yes. It is a skill set. And once you understand the principles and elements and of design, and you know, scale, proportion, color, texture, all that, the artsy fartsy stuff, but that makes a bouquet. And I think that's the trick of hand-tied bouquets, especially when the mass market started accepting them. In the beginning, they were pretty bad. They were just a bunch of mixed flowers. And fortunately, I've had a very good living teaching growers and bouquet assemblers how to do the right bouquet. And right now you can, bouquets at different retail outlets look phenomenal. And the mixes are right. They have a lot of big nurseries or, farms have AIFD, American Institute of Floral Designer staff. I won't name them, but I've worked for many of them, but they are really now I could even say that some growers have changed their product mix at the farm to enable a valuable bouquet.
Well, they're, watching the bouquet makers here in Florida. Their method, of course, is buying up farms to get those particular products that they can make those more exotic, if you will, bouquets that not just the plop and drop Colombian bunch, so and they certainly have come a long way. And designers, I was, watching this show in Miami here, doing some designer challenges there, and watching people, in 30 minutes throw together an arrangement from a bucket of flowers is pretty clever. And
I call it Iron Chef.
It's an Iron Chef sort of thing. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, and you see a lot of different approaches to making that bouquet or whatever their challenge was. And it's interesting to see so many variations. So, and I think, what do you think about designs of today anyway? I mean, are designs,
oh my God,
are they getting,
I was
afraid over the top, or are they, I mean, I've seen some of them that are, drastically simple, which I think are clever as well, maybe just one or two flowers, and but, they're certainly getting bigger.
Well, I thought of that a little bit before you and I came on this show, I always tell people there are flower arrangers and there are floral designers. And the difference is, are you a cook? Are you a chef?
Okay.
And most young people aspire to be a chef, whether they're ready or not. They've been in the kitchen, and I don't put them down. It's just that they're very excited. They're very ambitious, but they may not have all the tools of a chef. And so I look at these things, and being a commercial designer, right? I make a living upscaling product for the highest amount of money. I'm a commercial artist.
Sure.
And I even if I'm at AIFD, I tell people that if as a commercial artist, you have to be creative, but the end result is that everybody makes money. Then there are the artist group, as in expression. And right now we're in especially with the internet, this is just my humble opinion, but we're in a situation where that 15 seconds of fame comes in, where people make something so outrageous and pieces on people's heads that have the most expensive flowers in them. I mean, I look at that and go, there is $500 worth of flowers on her hair, wholesale, let alone the time. And time is the number one thing these days, So I like what people are doing, in that they're daring and they are breaking the molds, but ultimately, is the consumer appreciating it, or is it just a whim? Kind of what in the marketing world is called, a fad, or obviously a trend. And so I hope that in the long range, for our business, for the growers, the shippers, the wholesalers, if you only focus on trends and that trend goes away, you're in trouble. Yeah. And so I'm looking at the bigger picture, because I'm a marketing guy with creativity on my side. And so I love what they're doing. Long story, but I love what they're doing. And I love the fact that we attract young people to it. I just hope that we're attracting people for the right reason.
Sure.
As in staying power.
Yes. And well, we need that, of course, because we got to keep bringing blood into this business. That's a sort of a challenge that we face all the way down the distribution chain. Growers trying to find young people to come in and work the farms, or the importers. I'm actually quite pleased that many of the importers, I see their children, or which are not children anymore, they're sons and daughters working in the businesses. That's very encouraging.
That is good. That is good.
Hey, about flowers, they're in general, you're seeing there's a lot of new, not necessarily new flowers, but new colors and new textures and new, the breeders have really been going nuts creating stuff. I mean, the ranunculus and dahlias I see are just spectacular.
Yes. Well, again, artistically, I think it's phenomenal, because, when I got here, and I've been here for 44 years. Can you imagine? 44 years. And I'm 27. But but when I came here, Lewis Thornton, at the time a very well-known Southern California shipper, you know them well, they thought I was the weird guy because I was working with sunflowers, and I grew them in my own garden because nobody had sunflowers. It's not too long ago. And sunflowers are now probably the 4th largest crop in money. Oh yeah, it's tremendous. It's huge. And I worked for one of the largest grower of sunflowers for 10 years. So I think I love the new flowers. However, I think that we have to keep looking at how sustainable are they, whether it's through trials, which most of these guys have to do because they cost money. But then I look a little further, and again, I'm a little skewed, because all the breeders need to stay busy. If a breeder doesn't create new stuff, they don't need breeders, right?
Yeah.
And so my perspective is a little bit more on the inside. I love what they're doing, and I think it's amazing how they can take botanicals that even 15 years ago were considered weeds.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, a weed by definition, a flower that grows where you don't want it to grow. I mean, but still, I love what's happening, because the consumer is really responding to all those wild meadow flowers. I mean, look at Scabiosa. I have been, when I used to work for the California Cut Flower Commission, and I said to these guys, start growing field flowers. It's cheap. They're gone. You can plow it over in 3 months and start all over again. And you're not stuck with rose bushes for 7 years.
Yeah.
And now that is, even South America, I mean, they embrace Scabiosa, pushed by one major seed company, you know.
Yes, we know who
it's
they are.
exciting. It's very exciting. We're seeing things that, and they last. I mean, they've really done work on all of that. So what I love about all this, and what I personally do in my business is that I'm not in just one venue, like I do weddings or special events, or I'm a presenter. What I love is that I get to talk to the breeders and the seed companies, and I get to talk to the agronomists in Colombia, and I get to talk to the people who have to deal with 10,000 of one bouquet. And that to me is exciting, because you're in the very beginning of what consumers get to see. You know, it's product development.
Are they listening?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
They're listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always been a challenge, you know, to get, and I don't envy any breeder, because, you know, trying to make 1 million samples, then maybe you get 1 or 2 that might be, you know, prosperous is a big deal. And then they have to, you know, it's like, I always relate it to whiskey. It's like making whiskey. You got to put it in the ground, you got to nurture it, you got to age it, you got to, and you got to hope that it becomes a winner, you know?
You know, it's a labor of love, Willie. It is a, where does it come from that I want to do, and what you do? Where's that passion come from? And I think the people that I have gotten to know in my career in the United States and even all over the world, we all have one thing in common, and that is that we love what we do. Because if you didn't love this, you couldn't do it. We're not.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
It's a lot of work, and it's not the best paying job. But I tell people I love what I do.
I have warm thoughts of going to Alexander Farms, the Joey's farm, and
Joey,
and walking around his sort of experiment areas, and you can pick a flower. If you like one, pick it and bring it in and see if maybe we'll make it a production. And I'm like, wow, that's so beautiful.
He loves what he's doing. I mean, he's hands-on.
He's so passionate about it. He took an idea and made it work. You know, he made garden roses last longer, or, you know.
Yep. Well, the breeders did, but
the breeders did.
Yeah.
And he nurtured it and worked with them. And it's a really nice thing. Are you still involved with the San Diego Botanical Society or whatever you were doing?
Well, it's this. Yes, I have done a lot of work for many years for what used to be called Quail Gardens, because I'm in Encinitas, literally next door to the old Ecke Ranch, Paul Ecke Ranch.
Okay.
And this is a 37-acre spot. I actually live on the grounds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I've done a lot of work for them as a volunteer and just donating my services. But there is a new director here, and he wanted to be more formal about my association with the garden. And it started basically officially right before COVID, and it worked out really well because I didn't have to commute. And I've done quite a few things for them. But as of late, we have a phenomenal state-of-the-art conservatory. It's a very large Dutch greenhouse. And I've been doing exhibitions for them because that's what I did in the Netherlands. Oh. So I'm their creative director. He calls me creative director, artist in residence, and I'm literally the artist in residence. But it is fantastic because I get to work with a lot of super passionate volunteers, and there are so many gorgeous plants. And to see the audience look at those exhibitions, it's no cut flowers. It's mostly plants and
right.
and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube if you go to the San Diego Botanic Garden. But yeah, I love it, and it's a total departure from cut flowers, but it's what I love to do because it's composition. You know, it's the same concept. It's principles and elements, only on a bigger scale, like the Rose Parade. It's flowers, but you have to step back and look at it from 30,000 feet.
And how interesting they do those things. It's pretty amazing how they stick all those flowers on there and drive it down the street. Hey, what are you seeing? You know, I probably know the least about retail florists in my life. You know, I've been involved more in the growing and the logistics, obviously.
Right.
And we know that there's a lot less retailers in the world, and maybe less again because of COVID. Um, what are you seeing out there from that perspective? There,
Well, I haven't been around the country for a while. I'm actually leaving tomorrow for AIFD
in
Las
Vegas,
Vegas, but
yeah,
I haven't really been around like I did when I was working shows where I would go into. I mean, I've literally been in every state of the United States other than Guam. But I am seeing that the easy entry people that we jokingly used to call basement Betties
right.
um, are now the people who do events and weddings out of their homes or studios. It may be a garage, but they call it a studio. But the retail florist, the numbers from the Society of American Florists are less than 14,000.
Yeah.
Brick and mortar, traditional, like a florist the way you and I know them.
Yes.
And you know, I looked it up. Florist just says one who deals with flowers.
Right. It's a very broad definition.
Yeah. So I think we're doing well with flowers because we've added so many different channels, you know, the .coms, the mass market, and a lot of people love they're attracted to what it does to their retail venue, especially mass market. It's always in the front, 9 times out of 10. And it's like that, wow, you know, and so I think we're okay. And thank God we embraced the supermarket, because where would we be today? Right?
Yeah, and I was going to, that leads me into it, asking about supermarkets, because we, you know, shopping around here, we happen to have a Trader Joe's here, and
Oh, you do, yeah.
and literally the people are fighting over flowers.
Yeah, yeah.
You walk in the store, and the first thing you see, and there is a crowd of people plucking things up and wondering what is this and what is that, and I've got 2 bunches of peonies on the table here, just spectacular. So
Yeah.
yeah, the supermarkets have done a good job. They really,
Yes.
yeah, they've done a good job of keeping flowers in front of people. I see just about everybody walking out of that store with flowers in their cart.
In their shopping, it's fantastic.
And it warms my heart to see it, you know.
Yeah.
And I try to keep my big mouth shut when I'm walking around saying, oh, well, you should try those mini carnations right there. Or those spray roses will really last long, you know. And
For a salesman.
I can't help it. And then I say, you know, just shut up and buy your own if you want.
I think the only thing that I want to add, whoever is listening or seeing this, is that a good florist is someone that is very skilled and is a craftsman or craftswoman. That is disappearing. And I know you know this, but this whole idea that, oh, we can't do floral foam and we can't do, and I'm like, okay, so how do you do a casket piece? And I see people delivering flowers to funeral homes, flowers in a vase. And I'm going,
what do you do with it?
I don't want, what? You can't put that in a vase. It falls over. The water comes out. And so because of 6 years of schooling in the Netherlands for floristry, horticulture and forestry, I just hope that we hang on to that craftsmanship element, so that when you see a beautiful, which is of course subjective, a beautiful bridal bouquet, it is skilled. It's made in a very skilled way. Back to the kitchen. It's no different than being a chef or a cook. And so that's why I support the American Institute of Floral Designers, because they really push that level of excellence in craftsmanship.
Ah, good. I was going to ask you about that because I know you're going there, and it's one of the few events that I've really never attended. Again, it's, you know, more retail, but when that's what you're learning there. You're trying to keep those ideas alive.
Yep, trend. And you know, it's interesting when I was there on behalf of one of the mass market people, all the top mass marketers, I'll leave the names out, they have people from their management team going there because that is the authority of what's happening in the industry, right? And it's quite fascinating. So if we're no longer just like floral people, creatives coming together, there are other people now coming, including nurseries, you know, that are very involved in AIFD, and some of the leading wholesale distributors have people participating because that is the crowd they want to sell to. So it's a very morphed, interesting group that is passionate and moving things forward.
Yeah, and you mentioned basement Betties because again, they were. It was almost a derogatory term, I
Oh,
guess.
oh, absolutely.
Saying,
Yeah.
okay, well, it's not a real florist. They're
Yeah.
just selling flowers out of their basement, and that's not fair,
Yeah.
and that's not right. But you sort of gave them elevated them a little bit because many of those perhaps now are actual designers and event
Yep.
planners, and
Yep.
they became a whole audience in themselves.
Yes. And like Trader Joe's, they have a different expense structure. So they usually are less expensive. Not always, but they're usually less expensive than a high level, well-known floral shop because obviously they have a retail place, they have employees, they have a lot of overhead that these mostly young ladies do in a studio. And by the way, the thing that I used to tell retailers, the best thing about weddings and events is that you sell it first and then buy the product.
Yeah, right.
Most florists used to buy all this product and
hoping
God they got rid of it, like what wholesalers used to do, right?
Yeah, buy it and hope you sell it.
And or there's a few funerals, whatever. I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, I know I'm being crude, but it's the truth of
the
every day,
weddings and funerals have kept this business alive for a long time.
Yep, a long time.
And, hey, Rene, as I told you, 20 minutes would go very fast, and indeed it did.
Yeah.
So I do have a surprise for you. So before I'm going to turn off the recording, and then I'm going to ask you just to hang on for a minute.
Okay.
I won't even have to wait that long. Actually, look who I found here. Look who I found here. Sit down up here.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. Nice to see you, sir.
Good to see you. What are you doing there?
He's visiting.
I'm visiting.
Nice.
I'm visiting Willem. I haven't seen him so long, so we are glad to be here in Orlando.
Nice.
And how are you doing, sir?
I'm good. And it's funny. I just a few days ago came back from seeing my mom in Amsterdam. So talk about a changing world, But Orlando is a nice place to come to.
It's a bit hot outside. Here, inside, it's fantastic.
But as Dutch people, they're all hanging out outside in the garden. They don't want to be in the air conditioning,
Yeah.
Smoking cigars.
It's him still.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yes, yes.
Rene, is it possible for you to make a living?
I always make a living. I'm Dutch. My story with Willie is that I reinvent myself. I've done weddings, I've done programs, I've done teaching.
Fantastic.
I've worked for bouquet assemblers, and now I'm the creative director for the Botanical Garden, which is
fantastic.
How the hell did you get that job? I just jump in there,
Well, so to see you are sitting in paradise, where we have the other side of the paradise here in Orlando.
Yes, yes. It's almost like the two should merge together.
True.
Yeah, I have a very nice patio at my house, and it's always full of plants, of course. And
beautiful.
And it's I'm only about a mile from the water, so we always have that famous California breeze,
The breeze and the
fog. It's nice.
And are you healthy?
Yeah, I'm healthy. I mean, I'm turning 65, so I consider myself healthy.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's going well. I mean, I'm slowing down a little bit, but you know what it is? Like my finance guy said, well, when are you retiring? I said, I'm already retired in the sense that I do what I want to do, and what I don't want to do, I don't do. And the jobs that are good and fun, I'll take. I'm doing something for Costco the end of July, and I'm flying up there on a private plane. And it's a no stress, it's easy. And I'm like, hey, and it pays well. And I'm like, this is good. And then I go home and then have a few days where, so the everyday I've got to, that luckily I don't have that anymore. So that's very fortunate.
I visited Red Kennegat on my way up to Orlando.
Oh my God, bless his heart.
Red said, my father was 106 and I like to be older than him, become older than him. So he has many years to go. So for you also, there is a bright future there in that beautiful country.
Yes, there is. Thank you. Are you staying long?
I can go finish my interview here.
And stay in touch with us.
Okay, all right. Good to see
Here's
you.
Willem coming.
Okay,
all right.
So that was my other Dutch friend, Jaap Kras.
Yes.
I thought that would be a nice a surprise for you.
Amazing.
So I got a chance to practice my Dutch here as well. Anyway, Rene, thank you for coming on Flowers and Scents. I'll publish this on Tuesday. So
Oh,
you'll see it
wonderful.
at AFID. And thank you for doing this. And I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Me too. Great to see you.
Tot ziens.
And happy 4th of July.
And as well. Thank you.
Cheers.